So here we are again. Did a live stream earlier. Testing the waters kind of thing to see if this will work. And I'll upload to my channel afterwards. And since it's going to do that, it's good. So let's do it. I'm going to continue the Rabbit Man Exorcist. This will be today was rough. There was a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of different experiences being had around not only being an exorcist, but also of taking part in exorcisms as I go about my day-to-day business. It's been really difficult. Difficult to really get it down to the nitty-gritty of what it is that is not only expected of me on a day-to-day basis, but also what's expected of me as I continue to take care of my rabbits and I take care of myself. There had been a very involving for some reason, young adolescents seem to be the ones being targeted the most by spirits these days, or at least by entities. Except this one was the exact opposite of what I saw the first two times that I've dealt with cases, and I don't know what to make of it. It's actually frustrating that I don't know what to make of this case or anything involving the case and any of the leads so far. There's always this looming sense of dread with each one, with each experience going into it and performing these exorcisms. I don't know whether or not anybody will really understand whether or not this is doable on a personal level, or whether or not any of this is going to get out there and anybody who's listening to this will actually care about a man and his rabbits. With the case. With this case. This case is something. This case is a lot of things. So instead of a dark entity this time, there was actually an essence, a kind of molten white hot entity attached to this child. I don't know what it is that they were involved in to even create an experience like that one, where you can come to an exorcism and just be met with some white hot entity. There was a lot to it. There was so much attached to it. There was such red hot rage in this entity. I don't know what it wanted. I don't even know how it got there. I don't know what it was even attached to. But it was definitely something. I don't know whether or not what I saw could even be considered an entity or being whatsoever. So it hurts me. So much of what I've experienced with it has been rough. Being in that space with so many angry things just attached to each other. Made it hard to focus. But just like any case in which it was hard to focus or it was hard to see, there was always this gnawing sensation, like a chewing, just in the back of my head over this case. Now rabbits are fine. Glad just to get that out there. That too was bugging me for a long time. A lot of rabbits in this case. The cases before it with the children. 2 girls, now 3 girls. I feel like my body is angry, not me. I feel extremely calm underneath it all, but almost like all that anger transferred to me. And since that exorcism last night, it's always just been these dreams, these. I should finish with the case. Should finish with what the case was about. Okay, so the case, not knowing what kind of entities that I would see. There were dark entities, of course, with the 2 girls prior to this case, and then there was this white, like a molten lava, like a heat so intense that it burns white. It ended up becoming so much more than I anticipated. So much more trouble. I wanted so much to put that away, to just focus on any of the other cases that I had before, not to listen to any of the noise of this case and any of the other cases prior, or even about my rabbits. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about them disappearing. So I put all that away. I put it on the back burner. It's really hard to focus when it comes to the case. So I met this girl. I met with parents. And all the occurrences that happened prior, all the damage and just the mood swings and all of that, that was just like the other two cases prior. It's hard to not draw parallels, but that was a parallel in this case. A lot of cases I was just losing it during this case. All the parallels were just digging into me, and I didn't know what to do with it. Still don't know what to do with it. We went through the usual exorcism, sage and all that other stuff that people love to do during exorcisms. Well, exorcisms is space, but people are space. They're filled with all kinds of things. But the same rings true. If you can clear a house with sage, then you can clear a person with sage. This is the first time that the person had to be hospitalized afterwards. It wasn't because of anything that happened during the exorcism. Everything that happened during the exorcism was beat for beat, done it at least 40 times before. But that, whatever it was, that thing, was so much more angry, so much more aggressive than any of the other things that I had to deal with. I always wanted, as an exorcism, as an exorcist, it was always just to help people. And coming into contact with rabbits, it allowed me to have more of a opportunity to experience something other than my own curse. The ability to just finally understand it, and I got more answers than I needed or wanted. Damn games. Try to focus. One thing at a time. Alright. So, during this case, I ended up doing all the same stuff, the same rigmarole, same everything. I ended up getting very far into it, very invested in what I saw, and very invested in the things that I had to do in order to get there, in order to get to a spot in which the person, in this case this little girl, was able to concentrate and focus on her own power, because it's not about necessarily expelling something from somebody, but it is about allowing that person to also invest in themselves to bring it out, because otherwise that entity won't go anywhere. Kids are a lot easier to do when it comes to exorcisms because they're still very imaginative and they can come up with very creative ways to get rid of entities. You have no idea the kind of wacky things I've seen during exorcisms. Maybe for another time. I just want to get this case out of my head. So settling down in the living room, there was this calm, a calm I've never felt before going into any kind of exorcism before. Everything was fine. Everything was all right. Everything was going well. The kid was responding, and the entity was subsiding for a time. And as the exorcism continued, the actual visual effects outside of the ability to see what's happening physically, like the living room, the sky outside, everything was turning dark. was like a blackout in the middle of the day, like a power outage. Like the sun was having a power outage. By far one of the more terrifying experiences I've had as an exorcist. But it wasn't for anything physical. Like I understood everything that was happening physically to some extent. But there was this moment when I could feel my own curse connected to that darkness, to whatever was causing like this blackout, this experience, whatever it was. The moment it started to connect, it just, I felt it. It was like a tightening, almost like being constricted, like something was being taken from me, like my own energy, my own essence was being squeezed by the darkness that was just seeping out of the shadows everywhere in this room, in this house, outside. And I saw it like this cord, primarily purple, but it would change colors, and it would intermix with this angry entity that was attached to the young girl. And at times it would move. Like it wasn't actually attached to the young girl, it was attached to something surrounding the young girl in a very physical way. And it just kept moving. I kept hearing this laughter. Like it was always behind me. And ever since the case, there's always this laughter. I can't really shake it. But it doesn't come from something I'm aware of. It's almost like that thing took as much of my energy and the little girl's energy as possible and is beginning to manifest in a very physical way. I don't know what to do about that. Exorcisms is all I do aside from taking care of my rabbits. So what the hell do I do? There was one time after the case, shortly after the case, because the girl collapsed, she went pale and just dropped out of the chair she was shit. And she was sitting and I damn near shit myself. Just the sound of her hitting the carpet and almost hitting the table scared the shit out of me. She missed it that much. And everything brightened up again. And then they rushed her to the hospital. from what I understood and from the looks that they gave me in some of these exorcisms, especially the last two prior to this one, there are different things that the parents are able to see physically with their eyes, which is usually the hardest part for anybody who ever sees my exorcisms. They usually just note that the person falls asleep or some ominous feeling is no longer present when the exorcism is over. They kept looking at me. Not necessarily looking at me. It was like they were looking behind me when the exorcism was over. And after I left, they packed up the car and left. I ended up getting a call from my uncle, so I visited for a bit since I was near that area anyway. He himself talked about how he got calls from other relatives that they felt cold and like something was squeezing their insides. Darkness everywhere they looked, seeping out of the shadows almost to the same kind of tea. Some used coffee as an analogy, others used like dirt being shifted, all kinds of analogy meaning the same thing. There was this unescapable dread the moment I reached my uncle's house, and he felt it too. He looked at me and he was like, "Bring something with you, did you?" I just shook my head, made me laugh, but it didn't fix just the absolute dread I felt in my stomach. Then the laughing started while I was there. Just like a shifting behind me, like a cackling sound. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever experienced. My own family would ever look me in the eyes and ask me, "Did you hear that?" To confirm with me, the exorcist in the family, if I heard what I just heard. If you've ever experienced something like that, it's something that you never want other people to confirm with you, or even before you even bother to ask for that confirmation that they want to get out of you. All I could think about was my rabbits. And oddly enough, this entity had different patterns and ear lengths and whisker lengths of all the rabbits that went missing. I wonder if that's why they were so angry. Why the entity was so angry. why I'm so angry. Not even scared, I just don't know what to do. All my years as an exorcist. Don't think I should continue to pursue the end of this, whatever this curse is. Because the closer I get, the less I want to know. The less I want to know. Harder to even say. Wish I never started.